Jake Collins wiped the sweat from his face as he crawled out from under the air recycling unit. The machine hummed quietly now, fixed for another few months. He grabbed his tools and stood up, feeling his back crack. Working in the lower levels of Kepler Station was hard on the body. The station floated in space around a big gas planet. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the dark. Inside, humans and aliens called Zephyrians worked together to dig rare metals from the planet. Below, the metals were worth a lot of money because they helped spaceships travel faster than light. Jake had been working here for 2 years. The pay was good, but life was not easy. The Zephyrians were bigger and stronger than humans. They had gray skin and long arms with sharp claws. Most of them thought humans were weak and stupid. They let humans work here only because human hands were small enough to fix the tiny parts inside machines. Jake walked through the metal hallways toward the main work area. His boots made soft sounds on the floor. The lights were dim down here. The Zephyrians liked it dark, so humans had to get used to it. He heard voices ahead, loud, angry voices. Jake moved faster, worried someone might be hurt. When he turned the corner, he saw a crowd of workers standing in a circle. Humans and Zephyrians were watching something in the middle. Jake pushed through the crowd to see what was happening. In the center stood Supervisor Dracton, a tall Zephyrian with scars on his face. He was holding a metal stick that glowed with blue electricity. In front of him was a small figure, a young Zephyrian girl. The girl looked scared. She was maybe 12 years old with the same gray skin as the adults but much smaller. Her big eyes were full of tears. Jake had seen her before in the halls. She was part of some training program for young Zephyrians who wanted to become soldiers. "You failed the test again," Dracton said to the girl. His voice was deep and mean. "Weak children become dead soldiers. Pain teaches strength." The girl's body shook, but she tried to stand straight. "I will do better next time, sir." "No," Dracton raised the electric stick. "You will learn now." Jake felt his heart beating fast. He knew what was about to happen. Dracton was going to hurt this child to teach her a lesson. All around him, people watched but did nothing. The humans were scared of getting in trouble. The Zephyrians thought this was normal, but Jake could not watch a grown man hit a scared little girl. "Wait," Jake said, stepping forward. Everyone turned to look at him. Dracton's eyes went wide with surprise. A human worker was speaking during a discipline session. This never happened. "Human," Dracton growled, "go back to your work. This is not your business." Jake's mouth felt dry, but he kept walking toward the girl. "She's just a kid. You don't need to hurt her." The crowd got very quiet. Some humans shook their heads, trying to tell Jake to stop. The Zephyrians looked angry that a human would dare to speak up. Dracton's face twisted with rage. "Stupid human. You think you can tell me what to do?" The girl looked at Jake with wide eyes. She had never seen a human stand up to a Zephyrian before. Jake could see she was scared, not just of the punishment, but of what might happen to him. "I'm not telling you what to do," Jake said, his voice steady. "I'm just saying there are better ways to teach." Dracton laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Better ways? You soft humans understand nothing about strength." He lifted the electric stick higher. "Move away, or you will be punished too." Jake did not move. He stood next to the girl between her and Dracton. "Then punish me instead." The crowd gasped. Even the Zephyrians looked shocked. Jake was just a maintenance worker, one of the lowest jobs on the station, but he was standing up to a supervisor who could have him thrown into space. "Jake, no," whispered another human worker. "Don't do this." But Jake stayed where he was. He looked down at the girl and gave her a small smile. "It's okay," he said quietly. "No one should hit kids." Dracton's anger exploded. "Fine. If you want to take her punishment, you will have it." He swung the electric stick at Jake's back. The blue electricity hit him like lightning. Pain shot through his whole body. Jake fell to his knees, his muscles jumping and twitching. The smell of burned clothes filled the air, but he did not scream. He bit his lip and stayed quiet. The girl was safe. That was what mattered. "Weak human." Dracton spat. This is what happens when you try to be a hero. Jake slowly stood up. His back felt like it was on fire, but he was still alive. He looked at the girl, who was staring at him with something like wonder in her eyes. There, Jake said to Dracton. She learned the lesson. Pain teaches strength, right? Now she knows someone was willing to take pain for her. Before Dracton could hit him again, a new voice cut through the air. What is happening here? Everyone turned. Commander Vexara stood at the edge of the crowd. She was tall and strong even for a Zephyrian. Her uniform had marks that showed her high rank. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp and dangerous. Jake felt his stomach drop. Commander Vexara was the security chief of the whole station. She could make people disappear with just a word. And the little girl. Jake suddenly realized who she must be. Commander, Dracton said quickly, I was training your daughter. This human interfered. Vexara walked forward. The crowd split apart to let her through. She looked at Jake, still standing near her daughter. Then she looked at the burn marks on his back. Then she looked at her daughter, who was unhurt. Kira, she said to the girl, are you injured? No, mother, Kira said in a small voice. The human, he protected me. Vexara studied Jake for a long moment. Her face showed nothing, but Jake felt like she was looking right through him. He waited for her to order his punishment, maybe even his death. Instead, she turned to Dracton. The training session is over. Everyone back to work. The crowd began to break up. Humans hurried away, glad to escape trouble. Zephyrians moved more slowly, disappointed the show was over. As Jake started to leave, Vexara spoke again. Human, what is your name? Jake turned back. Jake Collins, ma'am. Jake Collins, she repeated, as if remembering it. Interesting. Then, she walked away, taking Kira with her. But as they left, Jake saw Kira look back at him one more time. She mouthed the words, thank you, before disappearing around the corner. Jake stood alone in the empty hallway, his back still burning with pain. He did not know it yet, but his life had just changed forever. By standing between a child and harm, he had done something that would echo through the stars. He picked up his tools and went back to work, not knowing that Commander Vexara was already thinking about the strange human who chose pain over safety, and what that might mean for all of them. 3 weeks passed after Jake first protected Kira. His back healed, but the memory stayed fresh in everyone's mind. Other humans looked at him differently now. Some thought he was brave. Others thought he was crazy. All of them knew he had crossed a line that no human had crossed before. Jake tried to go back to his normal work. He fixed machines, cleaned air filters, and checked the power systems that kept everyone alive. But things were not the same. He kept thinking about Kira's scared face and the way she had said thank you. The training sessions continued. Every few days, Dracton would gather the young Zephyrians to teach them about being soldiers. Jake tried to stay away, but somehow he always ended up nearby when Kira was there. It started by accident. Jake was fixing a broken light panel when he heard Dracton's voice echoing down the hall. He was shouting at someone. Jake put down his tools and walked to see what was happening. Kira stood in the middle of a circle again. This time she had failed to climb a tall wall fast enough. Dracton held a different weapon now, a device that could make someone feel like they were drowning in space. Weakness brings death, Dracton said. Fear brings weakness. I will burn the fear out of you. Jake saw Kira's hands shaking. She was trying to be brave, but she was still just a child. Before he could think about it, Jake stepped forward. Supervisor Dracton, he called out. I need to check the air system in this area. There might be a dangerous gas leak. It was a high, but it gave Jake a reason to be there. Dracton looked annoyed, but he could not ignore a safety warning. Make it quick, human. Jake walked to the wall and pretended to check the air vents. He moved slowly, taking his time. While he worked, he talked to himself loud enough for everyone to hear. The readings are strange here, he said. Better test this again. Safety first, right? By the time Jake finished his fake inspection, the training time was over. Dracton had to dismiss the group. Kira walked past Jake and he saw her give him a quick, grateful look. This happened again the next week. Kira could not complete a memory test about military tactics. Drakton was about to use a mind probe that would hurt her brain. Jake showed up with the emergency repair that needed to be done right away. The week after that, Jake had to check radiation levels during another training session. The week after that, he needed to test the gravity systems at exactly the right time. Other humans started to notice the pattern. "Jake," said his friend Pete during lunch, "what are you doing? You're going to get yourself killed." Jake stirred his food around on his plate. The station food was not very good, but it kept them alive. "I'm just doing my job." "Your job is fixing machines, not protecting alien kids," said Maria, another worker. "Drakton is getting suspicious. He knows you're helping her." Jake looked around the small cafeteria where humans ate together. Everyone was watching him. "Would you rather I let him hurt her?" "It's not our problem," Pete said quietly. "We have to think about our own safety." "She's 12 years old," Jake said. "How is a hurt kid not everyone's problem?" The table got quiet. Jake finished his meal and went back to work. But he knew Pete and Maria were right about one thing. Drakton was getting suspicious. 2 days later, Jake was crawling through a maintenance tunnel when he heard voices below. He looked through a grate and saw Kira sitting alone in a storage room. She was reading something on a small computer tablet. Jake opened the grate and dropped down into the room. Kira jumped up, scared, then relaxed when she saw it was him. "Jake," she said, "you should not be here. If my mother finds out." "What are you reading?" Jake asked, sitting down across from her. Kira looked embarrassed. "Human stories. I found them in the station computer. They are different from Zephyrian stories." Jake smiled. "Different how?" "In our stories, the strong always win. The weak die, and that is good because it makes everyone stronger." Kira looked at her tablet. "But human stories, sometimes the weak become strong. Sometimes people help each other instead of fighting." "Not all human stories are like that," Jake said. "We have plenty of stories about fighting too. But you have stories about friendship, about people who sacrifice for others, even strangers." Kira looked at Jake with curious eyes. "Like what you did for me. Why did you do that?" Jake thought, for a moment. How could he explain something that felt so natural to him? "Where I come from on Earth, we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. That means everyone should help take care of kids, not just their parents, even kids who are not your species." "Especially then," Jake said. "Kids are kids. They need protection, not pain." Kira was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "In my training, they teach us that caring for others makes us weak. But you cared for me and you were strong enough to take my punishment. I do not understand." Jake pulled a deck of cards from his pocket. He always carried them. They helped pass time during long shifts. "Want to learn a human game?" "Is it a war game?" "Nope. It's called Go Fish. The goal is to collect sets of cards by asking other players for help." Kira looked confused. "The goal is to ask for help?" "Sometimes," Jake said, dealing the cards. "Sometimes the best way to win is to work together." They played for an hour. Kira laughed when Jake made silly faces after losing a hand. She had never played a game just for fun before. All Zephyrian games were about combat training or strategy. "This is strange," she said. "I am enjoying losing." "That's the point," Jake said. "Games should be fun, win or lose." From that day on, Kira started finding excuses to visit Jake during his work shifts. She would bring her tablet and read human stories while he fixed machines. Sometimes she would ask questions about Earth or human customs. Other times they just played cards. Jake learned that Kira was smart and curious. She asked good questions and remembered everything he told her. But she had been trained to hide these qualities because Zephyrians valued strength over intelligence. "My mother wants me to be a perfect soldier," Kira told him one day. "But I do not want to hurt people. Does that make me weak?" "It makes you human," Jake said, then caught himself. I mean, it makes you kind. That's not the same as weak. Meanwhile, Jake kept interrupting Dracton's training sessions. Each time, Dracton got angrier. Each time, Jake found a new excuse to be there at the right moment. He took several more beatings when his excuses were not good enough. Other workers begged him to stop. "You're going to get us all in trouble," they said. But Jake could not watch a child be hurt even if she was not human. What Jake did not know was that Commander Vexara had been watching everything. She saw how her daughter changed after meeting Jake. Kira smiled more. She asked questions about things other than warfare. She even started being kind to the younger trainees instead of competing with them. Vexara also watched Jake. She saw how other humans respected him even though he had the lowest rank. She saw him work extra hours to help others. She saw him fix machines that should have been replaced, saving the station thousands of credits. Most importantly, she saw him take punishment that was meant for her daughter, again and again, without asking for anything in return. In Zephyrian culture, this kind of behavior had a name. They called it Denthara, the spirit of the protector. It was the highest honor anyone could achieve. But Jake was not Zephyrian. He was just a human who thought protecting children was the right thing to do. One evening, Jake was working alone, in a deep maintenance tunnel when his radio crackled. "Collins," came a voice he recognized. It was Commander Vexara. "Yes, ma'am?" "Report to my office. Now." Jake's heart sank. This was it. She was going to punish him for interfering with her daughter's training. Maybe she would send him back to Earth. Maybe something worse. He climbed out of the tunnel and walked through the station's upper levels toward the command section. These areas were much nicer than where humans worked. The lights were brighter. The halls were wider and everything was clean. Commander Vexara's office was big and filled with weapons from different worlds. She sat behind a metal desk looking at papers on a computer screen. When Jake entered, she looked up with those sharp, intelligent eyes. "Sit," she said. Jake sat in the chair across from her desk. His hands were shaking, but he tried to hide it. "You have been interfering with my daughter's training," Vexara said. "Yes, ma'am." "You have taken punishment that was meant for her?" "Yes, ma'am." "You have put yourself in danger to protect a child who is not even your species." Jake thought about lying or making excuses. Instead, he just said, "Yes, ma'am." Vexara stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something Jake never expected. She smiled. "Good," she said. "Kira needs someone like you in her life. Continue your work, Jake Collins. But be more careful. Dracton is planning something and I may not be able to protect you next time." Jake left the office more confused than ever. As he walked back to his quarters, he wondered what Commander Vexara really wanted. He had no idea that she was already seeing him as much more than just another human worker. The next morning, Jake found a new assignment waiting for him. He had been moved to work in the sections of the station where Kira spent most of her time. It was not a coincidence. Commander Vexara stood in her private quarters, looking out at the stars through a large window. The gas planet below glowed with orange and red clouds that swirled like a slow dance. She had lived on this station for 3 years. But tonight, the view looked different somehow. On her desk was a file about Jake Collins. She had read it many times in the past few weeks. Born in Detroit, Earth. Parents died in a transport accident when he was 16. Worked his way through technical school. No criminal record, no family. The file was thin, but it told her what she needed to know. Jake was alone in the universe, just like her daughter had been before Vexara adopted her. Vexara thought about her own past. She had been a soldier for 20 years, fighting in wars, across the galaxy. She was good at her job because she was strong, smart, and ruthless. When enemies saw her coming, they ran. When allies needed someone to lead dangerous missions, they called her. But watching Jake with Kira made her wonder if there were other kinds of strength. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Kira entered the room. At 13, now she was getting taller but still looked young compared to other Zephyrians her age. She moved with more confidence than before, though. Jake's influence was showing. "Mother," Kira said. May I ask you something? Always. Why did you move Jake to work in our section of the station? Vexara turned from the window. Her daughter was smart. Too smart sometimes. He is a skilled worker. We needed someone to maintain the systems there. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I spend most of my time in that section. Vexara almost smiled. Perhaps a little. Kira sat in the chair by her mother's desk. The other trainees think I am becoming too human. They say Jake is making me soft. What do you think? I think they are afraid, Kira said. Yesterday, when Cadet Zexmore fell during climbing practice, I helped him up. The old me would have left him on the ground to learn from his failure. But Jake says humans believe in lifting each other up. And now? Now Zexmore trains harder because he knows someone believes in him. He broke his own record today. Kira looked at her mother with serious eyes. Is that soft or is that smart? Vexara felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. What else has Jake taught you? He taught me a word. Compassion. It means understanding someone else's pain and wanting to help them feel better. Kira played with the edge of her training uniform. He also taught me that being strong enough to protect others is better than being strong enough to hurt them. That night, Vexara made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, Jake was fixing a water recycling unit when his radio buzzed. Collins, report to Training Bay 7. Jake's stomach dropped. Training Bay 7 was where Dracton held his sessions. Jake had not been called there directly before. Usually he just showed up when he heard trouble. When he arrived, he found something unexpected. Commander Vexara was there with a group of young Zephyrian trainees. Dracton stood off to the side, looking angry. Kira was in the group, but she looked confused too. Ah, Collins, Vexara said when she saw him. Perfect timing. I was just telling these cadets about different types of strength. Perhaps you could help me demonstrate. Jake had no idea what she wanted, but he nodded. Yes, ma'am. Vexara walked to a control panel and activated a training simulation. Suddenly, the room filled with holographic images of a disaster scene. A spaceship had crashed, and people were trapped inside with fires spreading everywhere. This is a rescue simulation, Vexara explained to the trainees. The goal is to save as many lives as possible. Dracton, please show them the traditional approach. Dracton stepped forward, eager to prove his methods. He attacked the simulation like a battle, using brute force to smash through obstacles. He moved fast and strong, but he only focused on the biggest, easiest rescues. When he finished, the computer announced he had saved 60% of the people. Impressive, Vexara said. Now, Collins, your turn. Jake looked at the disaster scene and felt overwhelmed. He was not trained for this. He was just a maintenance worker. But as he looked at the holographic people crying for help, he stopped thinking about what he could not do and started thinking about what he could do. Jake moved through the simulation differently than Dracton. He was not as fast or strong, but he was careful. He looked for the people others might miss, the ones trapped in small spaces or too hurt to call for help. When he found a path blocked by debris, he did not smash through it. Instead, he found ways around it that would not cause more damage. Most importantly, Jake worked to save everyone, not just the easy ones. When he found a holographic child trapped under heavy metal, he used a lever and fulcrum system to lift the weight instead of trying to lift it with muscle. When he saw an elderly person who could not walk, he carried them on his back instead of leaving them behind. It took Jake longer to finish than Dracton, but when the simulation ended, the computer made an announcement that stunned everyone. Simulation complete. Lives saved, 95%. The trainees looked shocked. Dracton's face turned dark with anger, but Vexara nodded as if this was exactly what she expected. You see, she said to the trainees, there are different kinds of strength. The strength to destroy and the strength to protect. The strength to compete and the strength to serve. Both have their place, but a true leader must know which one to use when. She turned to Jake. Collins, what made you think to use the lever system? Jake felt embarrassed with everyone, staring at him. Well, ma'am, I fix machines every day. Sometimes you can't force a broken part out. You have to find the right tool and the right angle. I guess people are kind of the same way. Interesting perspective. Vexara looked at the trainees. Collins sees people as puzzles to be solved, not obstacles to be overcome. This is why he saved more lives. One of the younger trainees raised her hand. But Commander, he is not as strong as Supervisor Dracton. In a real battle, Vexara interrupted. The goal is not always to be the strongest fighter. Sometimes it is to be the smartest or the most determined or the most willing to sacrifice for others. She looked directly at Jake. Sometimes it is to be the most human. After the session, Jake was walking back to his work area when Vexara caught up with him in the hallway. "Collins," she said, "walk with me." They walked in silence for a few minutes. The upper levels of the station were quiet at this time of day. Their footsteps echoed off the metal walls. "That was a setup," Jake said finally. "You wanted me to beat Dracton in front of the trainees." "Yes." "Why?" Vexara stopped walking. "Because my daughter respects you. Because other humans look up to you. Because you have something that cannot be taught in training sessions." "What's that?" "The courage to care more about others than about yourself." Vexara studied his face. "Do you know what we call that in my language?" Jake shook his head. "Denthara. It means protector spirit. It is the highest honor in Zephyrian culture." She paused. "You are the first human ever to show true Denthara." Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. "I'm just doing what anyone should do." "No," Vexara said firmly. "Most people, human or Zephyrian, think about themselves first. You think about others first. That makes you dangerous to people like Dracton and valuable to people like me." "What do you mean, valuable?" Vexara started walking again. "I have been watching you, Collins. You fix machines that should be impossible to fix. You solve problems that others give up on. You make other workers better just by being around them." She looked at him sideways. "I am wondering what you could accomplish with proper training and resources." Jake's heart started beating faster. "Are you offering me a promotion?" "I am considering it. But first I need to know something." They reached a junction where the hallway split in two directions. "My daughter cares about you. She talks about your conversations, your card games, your stories about Earth. You have become important to her." Jake felt a wave of worry. "Commander, I never meant to." "I know exactly what you meant to do," Vexara interrupted. "You meant to protect a child who needed protecting. You meant to show kindness to someone who had never experienced it." Her voice grew softer. "What I need to know is, are you prepared for what comes next?" "I don't understand." Vexara looked out a nearby window at the stars. "Kira is becoming someone new because of your influence. She is learning to balance strength with compassion, competition with cooperation. She is becoming the kind of leader the galaxy needs. That's good, right?" "It is very good. But it also means she will face opposition from those who prefer the old ways." Vexara turned back to Jake. "And anyone who stands with her will face that opposition too." Jake thought about this. He thought about Dracton's angry face during the simulation. He thought about the other supervisors who might not like seeing a human succeed where Zephyrians had failed. "Commander," he said finally, "I've been taking hits for Kira since the day I met her. I'm not going to stop now." For the first time, since Jake had known her, Vexara smiled a real smile. Not the cold, professional expression she wore during work, but something warm and genuine. "Good," she said, "because starting tomorrow, you will be working directly with me as a special consultant on human Zephyrian cooperation. Your job will be to help train our next generation of leaders." Jake felt dizzy. Jake's new job was unlike anything he had ever done before. Instead of crawling through maintenance tunnels, he now spent his days in training rooms with young Zephyrians who were learning to be leaders. Instead of fixing machines, he was trying to fix the way people thought about each other. It was much harder than he expected. "Human Collins," said Cadet Zexmore during one of their sessions, "you say we should work together with other species. But what if they are weaker than us? Should we not let the weak fail so the strong can survive? Jake had heard this question many times in the past 2 months. It was the core belief of traditional Zephyrian culture. Tell me, Zexmore. Jake said, what happens to a machine when one part fails? The whole machine breaks down. Right. Now, what if instead of throwing away the broken part, we fixed it and made it stronger? What happens then? Zexmore thought about this. The machine works better than before? Exactly. A team is like a machine. When someone is struggling, you don't abandon them. You help them get stronger, and the whole team benefits. Kira, who was also in the group, raised her hand. But what if helping the weak makes us weak too? Jake smiled. This was his favorite question because it had led him to an important discovery about Zephyrian culture. Kira, remember when you helped Zexmore after he fell during climbing practice? Yes. And what happened to his performance after that? He got better, much better. And what happened to your own climbing scores? Kira looked surprised. They got better too. I had not thought about that. When you taught him your technique, you had to understand it better yourself. When you encouraged him to keep trying, you learned about not giving up. Helping others made you stronger, not weaker. These lessons were going well, but Jake was starting to notice other changes on the station. Changes that worried him. Commander Vexara had been acting strangely around him for the past few weeks. She would appear at his training sessions when she had no reason to be there. She would ask him to join her for meals in the officers' cafeteria, which made the other humans nervous and confused the Zephyrians. Most confusing of all, she had started bringing him gifts. The first gift was a new toolkit with equipment he had never seen before. For your work, she said, when she handed it to him. The best tools for the best technician on the station. The second gift was a set of books about Zephyrian history and culture. So you can understand us better, she explained. The third gift was a weapon, a beautiful knife with a handle made from rare metal and a blade that could cut through almost anything. This gift scared Jake. Commander, he said when she gave it to him, I'm not a soldier. I don't know how to fight. Learn, she said simply. Everyone around me must be able to protect themselves. Jake did not understand why she was giving him these things. He asked Kira about it, but she just smiled and said, My mother likes you, Jake. Is that not obvious? It was not obvious to Jake at all. He was a human maintenance worker who had accidentally stumbled into a teaching job. Vexara was the most powerful person on the station. Why would she like him? The answer came during a meeting that changed everything. Jake was in his quarters one evening reading one of the books Vexara had given him when his door chimed. He opened it to find 3 Zephyrian officers he did not recognize. They wore different uniforms than the station personnel, and their faces were cold and unfriendly. Human Collins, one of them said, You will come with us. Jake's mouth went dry. What's this about? Questions. Move. They escorted him through the station to a conference room he had never seen before. Inside, more officers sat around a large table. At the head of the table was a Zephyrian who looked older and more decorated than the others. His uniform had so many rank markings that Jake could not count them all. Commander Vexara was there too, but she was not sitting at the table. She stood off to the side like she was in trouble. Sit, the old officer said to Jake. Jake sat in the chair they pointed to. His hands were shaking, but he tried to hide it. I am Admiral Korthax of the Zephyrian High Command, the old officer said. I am here to investigate reports of unusual behavior on this station. Jake's heart sank. He knew this was about him protecting Kira and working with the trainees. You are the human who has been interfering with our training protocols, Admiral Korthax continued. You have been teaching our young people to reject traditional values. You have been spreading human weakness among our future leaders. Sir, Jake said carefully, I was just trying to... Silence. The Admiral's voice echoed around the room. Do you know what the punishment is for contaminating Zephyrian culture? Jake did not know, but he could guess it was bad. The punishment, Admiral Korthax said, is death. The room got very quiet. Jake felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. He looked at Vexara, but her face showed nothing. However, the Admiral continued, Commander Vexara has requested a hearing on your behalf. She claims your actions have been beneficial rather than harmful. She has asked to speak for you. Admiral Korthax nodded to Vexara. She stepped forward and stood next to Jake's chair. For the first time since Jake had known her, she looked nervous. Honored Admiral, she said, Jake Collins has not weakened our people. He has made them stronger. Explain. Before Jake's influence, the trainees in my daughter's group had a 60% success rate on leadership exercises. After 3 months of Jake's teaching, their success rate is 91%. One of the other officers spoke up. Success according to whose standards? Human standards? Zephyrian standards, Vexara replied firmly. The same tests we have used for generations. Jake did not change our goals. He changed our methods. Admiral Korthax looked interested despite himself. What methods? He taught them that strength includes knowing when not to fight. He taught them that good leaders lift up their followers instead of stepping on them. He taught them that the strongest teams are built on trust rather than fear. Human nonsense, muttered another officer. Is it? Vexara turned to face the table. Jake's students scored higher on every test. Combat effectiveness, problem solving, resource management, crisis leadership. In every category, the groups he worked with performed better than traditional training produced. Admiral Korthax frowned. These could be temporary improvements. Human influence might make them soft in the long term. Then test them, Vexara said boldly. Give them real challenges. See if they are soft or strong. The Admiral thought about this. Very well. We will conduct a full evaluation. But if these students fail to meet our standards, the human will face the consequences. Jake felt a little hope. Maybe he could prove that his methods worked. But then Admiral Korthax said something that changed everything. There is another matter to discuss. Commander Vexara, it has been reported that you have been showing personal interest in this human. Is this true? Jake saw Vexara's whole body go tense. He did not understand what the Admiral meant at first. Define personal interest, Vexara said carefully. You eat meals with him. You give him gifts. You spend time with him outside of work duties. Admiral Korthax's voice grew cold. Some say you are treating him as a potential mate. Jake's mind went blank. Mate? Him and Commander Vexara? That was impossible. She was... Actually, Jake realized with shock, she was doing exactly what the Admiral described. The meals, the gifts, the protective behavior. In human culture, those might be signs of friendship. But according to the book she had given him about Zephyrian customs, those were courtship behaviors. Commander Vexara wanted him as her mate. My personal relationships are my own business, Vexara said to the Admiral. Not when they involve humans, Admiral Korthax replied sharply. Zephyrians do not mate with inferior species. It is against our most basic laws. Jake Collins is not inferior, Vexara said, and Jake heard something dangerous in her voice. He has shown qualities that many Zephyrians lack. Courage, wisdom, selflessness. He has proven himself worthy of respect. He is human, said one of the other officers, as if that settled everything. He is Denthara, Vexara replied, using the word Jake had learned meant protector spirit. The first human to achieve that status. In the old traditions, Denthara transcends species. Admiral Korthax stood up slowly. Commander Vexara, you will abandon this foolish attraction immediately. The human will be confined pending evaluation. If he fails to prove his worth, he will be executed. If he succeeds, he will be transferred to a different facility where he cannot continue to influence you or your daughter. No, Vexara said simply. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Every officer in the room stared at her. No? Admiral, Korthax repeated. Jake Collins is under my protection. He has earned his place here through his actions. I will not allow him to be separated from my daughter, who needs his guidance. Vexara moved to stand directly behind Jake's chair, her hands resting on his shoulders. "And I will not abandon someone I have chosen as my mate." Jake felt his world spinning. This was really happening. Commander Vexara, the most powerful person he had ever met, was claiming him as her mate in front of the highest officers in the Zephyrian military. Admiral Korthax's face turned dark with anger. "This is unacceptable. You are one of our finest. Commanders, you will not throw away your career for a human. My career means nothing if I cannot choose my own path." The testing began the next morning. Admiral Korthax had brought a team of evaluators from the Zephyrian Military Academy, the best trainers and officers in their space fleet. They were going to examine everything Jake had taught and every student he had influenced. Jake barely slept the night before. He kept thinking about what would happen if he failed. Vexara would lose her rank and her home. Kira would be sent away to a different training facility. All the young Zephyrians he had worked with would go back to the old harsh methods of learning. But when he walked into the training room that morning, he found something that gave him strength. All of his students were waiting for him. Not just Kira and her group, but cadets from other classes who had heard about his teaching methods and wanted to learn. "We are ready," Kira said simply. "Whatever they ask us to do, we will show them what we have learned." The first test was individual combat. Each student had to fight against a holographic opponent designed to match their skill level. Jake watched nervously as his students took their turns. In the old training system, students were taught to win fights by being more aggressive and brutal than their enemies. Jake had taught them something different, to win by being smarter and more adaptable. Zexmore faced his holographic enemy and did something unexpected. Instead of charging forward with maximum force, he studied his opponent's movements for several seconds. Then he used a combination of moves that turned his enemy's strength against itself. The fight was over quickly and Zexmore was barely hurt. "Excellent technique," one of the evaluators said, making notes on his tablet. "Efficient and effective." One by one, Jake's students passed their combat tests. They did not fight like traditional Zephyrians, but they won their matches with less effort and fewer injuries. The second test was team problem solving. The students were divided into groups and given complex scenarios to solve. Things like rescuing people from a damaged spaceship or organizing the evacuation of a colony under attack. Jake watched his heart pounding as Kira's team worked on their scenario. They had to coordinate the rescue of civilians from a space station that was breaking apart. In the traditional approach, the team leader would give orders, and everyone else would follow without question. But Kira did something different. She listened to ideas from every member of her team. When the youngest cadet suggested a creative solution that others had missed, Kira incorporated it into their plan. When two team members disagreed about the best approach, she helped them combine their ideas instead of choosing sides. The result was a rescue plan that saved more lives than any of the evaluation teams had seen before. "Remarkable," Admiral Korthax murmured to another officer. "Their coordination is flawless. The third test was the hardest." Each student had to demonstrate leadership under extreme pressure. They were given command of a simulated military unit during a crisis and had to make life or death decisions while dealing with fear, confusion, and limited resources. Jake had taught his students that good leaders serve their people rather than ruling over them. He had shown them that asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. He had emphasized that protecting others was more important than looking strong. When it was Kira's turn, she faced a scenario where her unit was trapped behind enemy lines with wounded soldiers and limited supplies. The traditional response would be to abandon the wounded and fight their way out with maximum force. Instead, Kira did something that made even Jake proud. She gathered her officers and asked each one for their honest assessment of the situation. She listened to their fears and concerns instead of demanding blind obedience. Then she developed a plan that used everyone's strengths and protected everyone's weaknesses. Her plan worked perfectly. Every simulated soldier under her command survived, and they completed their mission with minimal casualties. When all the tests were finished, Admiral Korthax called Jake and Vexara to a private meeting. Jake's hands were shaking as they walked to the conference room. The results are unexpected, the Admiral said when they were seated. Your students performed at levels we have rarely seen, even among our most elite graduates. Jake felt a wave of relief, but the Admiral was not finished. However, there is concern about the long-term effects of your methods. Some believe that your emphasis on cooperation and emotional connection will make our soldiers too soft for real warfare. Admiral, Vexara said, may I suggest a final test? What kind of test? Let Jake's students face a real challenge. Not a simulation, but an actual mission where their skills will be tested against genuine dangers. Admiral Korthax looked interested. What did you have in mind? There is a research station in the Outer Rim that has lost contact with command. The last message indicated technical failures and possible life support problems. Send a rescue mission led by Jake's students. If they succeed where traditional methods might fail, you will have your proof. The Admiral thought about this for a long moment. Very well, but Jake Collins will accompany the mission as an observer only. If his students fail, both of you will. Accept the consequences immediately. 3 days later, Jake found himself aboard a Zephyrian rescue ship heading toward the edge of known space. The crew was made up entirely of his former students, with Kira as the mission commander despite being younger than most of the others. Are you nervous? Jake asked her as they approached the damaged research station. Yes, Kira said honestly, but you taught me that being nervous means you care about the outcome. That is good. The research station was in worse condition than they had expected. Half of the structure was dark, life support was failing in several sections, and there was no response to their communications. Traditional protocol would be to go in with full force and secure the station quickly, Kira told her team. But that might harm any survivors who are hiding or injured. We will approach carefully and methodically. Jake watched with pride as his students put everything he had taught them into practice. They worked as a perfect team, using each person's skills to maximum advantage. When they encountered a section of the station that was too dangerous to enter, they found creative ways around the problem instead of forcing their way through. Most importantly, when they found the research station's crew, 12 scientists who had been trapped for 6 days without proper food or water, they treated the rescue as their highest priority instead of trying to look heroic. Status report, Kira said as her team brought the last survivor aboard their ship. All 12 researchers rescued and receiving medical attention, reported Zexmore. No casualties among our team. Station system stabilized. We also recovered their research data, which appears to be extremely valuable. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he watched these young Zephyrians celebrate their success. They had saved lives, completed their mission, and proved that cooperation was stronger than competition. When they returned to Kepler Station, Admiral Korthax was waiting with the evaluation results. The rescue mission was flawless, he announced, to a gathering of officers and crew. But more importantly, we have analyzed the long-term data from Jake Collins's teaching program. The room got very quiet. Students trained under his methods show 93% mission success rates, compared to 78% for traditional training. They have 60% fewer casualties, 40% better resource efficiency, and significantly higher morale and unit cohesion. Admiral Korthax looked directly at Jake. Human Collins, your methods are not making our people soft. They are making them stronger in ways we had not previously understood. Jake felt like he could barely breathe. Therefore, the Admiral continued, the High Command has decided to implement your teaching methods throughout our military training programs. You will be given the rank of Special Cultural Advisor, with authority to train instructors and develop new programs. Then he turned to Vexara. Commander, your judgment in this matter has been proven correct. You will retain your rank and be given command of a new joint human-Zephyrian unit for deep space exploration. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Additionally, Admiral Korthax said, Jake Collins will be granted full Zephyrian citizenship with the honorary title of Denthara, Protector of the People. This makes him eligible for all rights and privileges of a Zephyrian noble, including the right to mate with any citizen of his choosing. Vexara smiled, the first time Jake had ever seen her look truly happy. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of their new ship, looking out at stars he had never seen before. He was wearing a uniform that combined human and Zephyrian designs, with rank markings that showed his status as both a teacher and an advisor. Enjoying the view? Vexara asked as she joined him at the window. Still getting used to it, Jake admitted. 6 months ago I was fixing air recyclers. Now I'm helping to explore new worlds and train the next generation of leaders. Do you regret anything? Jake thought about his old life. The simple routine of maintenance work, the safety of staying invisible, the comfort of not having to make difficult decisions. No, he said finally. Everything that mattered to me is here. He was right. Kira was on the ship with them, now serving as their cultural liaison and learning to be a bridge between species. She had grown into a confident young woman who combined the best qualities of